Good. So as in the last time, at the very top we have the links towards the presentation about the features, so about Stack Overflow. I guess you already know the features that you will have to implement and so on, but just if you want to have a reminder, you can find it there. And then you can find also the link to the theoretical background presentation that we just did in here. And then there are the design constraints. So the design constraints are the following. You will need to use MV something pattern, MVC or MVP. Basically, again, I just want to see that you have a folder or a package in which you have some, let's say, classes or objects which handle the data stuff. So your model, the data and the behavior, like you have the services right now. Then you will need to have a folder package, whatever, with the views, so pure HTML views, and then some classes or objects for the controllers, right? And the controllers should have event handlers for user input and so on, and to manipulate the model, right? So that's the MVC or MVP, depends how you want to do it, pattern. Then you will have to use observer pattern. I think that most of you will use observer pattern for notifying changes for the state, for the model. So your model will be observable and your controllers or views will observe the model. So will be observers for that model, will listen for changes. You will not have any kind of backend. We will connect this UI to our backend in assignment 3. So right now everything will be in the browser. If you press the refresh button, everything will be deleted and you start from scratch related to data or the changes that you do. So we will hold the state purely in memory. We will not have any kind of persistence really. Right? From a technology perspective, we will use Node.js. We use the code as editor and React. That's my preferred choice. I decided yesterday to do it like this or the day before. And the reasoning is the following. So I had two options that I was thinking about, React or Timeleaf. Timeleaf is something that you could use from Spring, and React is something that is running in the browser. Timeleaf is a server-side rendered UI engine, meaning the code is executed on the server, and in the browser you just see the output of the server and no real dynamic stuff is happening. Why did I choose React, which is on the client side, meaning the rendering is done on the client side. We have to write JavaScript and so on. It's simple. In the industry, actually there are two reasons. In the first one, Timeleaf is not really used. So in the industry, in Cluj, I think there are maybe 20 people using Timeleaf, or 100, let's say, but that's really a happy estimate. Whereas React, for example, is right now the most popular UI framework in the world. It has something like 120,000 stars on GitHub. And the second one is because in assignment 3, it would be very complicated for you, because assignment 3 will be a client-server application. If you do it with Timeleaf, you would need to have two Java applications, one for the Timeleaf UI, one for the backend, and to communicate through sockets between them. And that would be horrible. And also, apart from being horrible, it's also useless because you will not do this in real life, never. Right? So right now we will implement something that you will do in real life, but you will have to write React, meaning you have to write some JavaScript. Right? That's the trade-off. In Timeleaf, you would write a templating language, which is not really Java. It's something that you would write in the HTML. So I think overall, it's better like this. If you really want, you can use Timeleaf, but I really don't recommend it because in assignment 3, it would be a lot more strange for you. Okay. And as a getting started, you will have to install Visual Studio Code and Node. You don't have to do it now because anyway, if you start downloading all of you, it will download with 1 kilo per second. Then if you install Node, you will have NPM in your path by default if you just install it. NPM is a package manager for Node, like Maven is for Java. And with this, you can install with npm i-g, you can install something globally, and you will install Create React App. Create React App is like the Spring initializer website that we used last week or the week before to create a new app. And if you install it and call it at the command line, it will create a new folder in which you have an empty app, which if you start with npm start, basically it will start your browser. You will see a splash screen with React. And if you change some code, automatically, instantly, you will see a refresh on the browser. So you'll write code and it automatically to refresh the browser window and you will see your changes. Okay? Okay. Then for the grading, for the passing grade, I want you to build a browser-based UI, meaning if you really want, so if you use React, it's fine. If you want to use something else, it has to be browser-based, meaning if you come to me and show me a desktop application, this is not passing. You have to show me something that you open in the browser, in Chrome. Okay, then to have feature one, meaning to list questions and to be able to create questions. You not really persist the created questions, you just have input fields for inputting this question and pressing the create button, but not really connected to a real backend. If you refresh, it will disappear and so on. And to have a clear MV something separation. So if you do everything in one place, in one class, which is big and does not have any separation, it will not be enough. And to have a model which is observable. So this is the minimum. And then for 6, you will need to do routing. Routing refers to switching between views. So if you have multiple views, which we will have if you implement at least 2 features, the question is how do you know when to change the views from one view to the other? And for 6, I want you to have a property in the model which is the current view. And based on that current view property, you display one of your views. Let's say that you'll have a question list view and a single question view and another view for creating an answer, let's say, I don't know. You will have to be able to identify which view to display, and you will do this by using basically a property in the model, right? This, I think, is pretty easy. We will see next week. I will show you. Okay? And then feature 2 and feature 3. So it's exactly like the other assignment, but with slightly different technical requirements. Right? And for the bonus stuff, next week or the week after, you can present a mockup. What's a mockup? It's a set of pictures which depict how you want to make the UI, or you can make a live mockup, which is a set of HTML or whatever, an executable mockup, which I can play around with, but it's not the real thing yet. Or you can use wireframes, so just like a diagram mockup. Or you can also do a paper mockup, and this is only the real case in which I allow you to use pen and paper, which is to draw how you think that the UIs should look like, and make multiple pictures and then connect them using the software to say, okay, if I press here on this paper, but actually on this imagined UI, it should go here and so on, right? So the mockup should have multiple views and to show me a journey, how you envision that the user should go through the app. Then for 2 points, to use Redux instead of our model. You will see what Redux is if you are interested. Then for another point, you can use React router instead of using this model routing. So what's the difference? Well, this model routing, as I said, you'll have a property in your model, and based on that, you will display the view. With React router, you will have a slightly different URL for each view. And based on that, you will decide which view to show. Okay, then for 1 point, to use a CSS library and not write CSS by yourself, but a library. And you can also write if you really want some CSS by yourself, to style your application. So I expect that most of the guys will have a UI looking like a shoe, but I think that maybe some of you will think about using something like Bootstrap or Bulma or Material to make your UI look more fancy. Again, I don't want you to use a React control library, meaning to use a library that has an input which is just made for React that you can use. I want you to write plain HTML and style the HTML using CSS. I will show you next week how you can do this. And lastly, if you write component tests for your views, and I linked here the documentation from React, then you get another point. I can already say that probably we will do some of these again when I will present to you the how to use React and so on. So you already have a basis, and you can already, all of you, get some bonus points just out of the bat. Okay? Good. Any questions?
What do you mean by holding the state of the model?
For holding the state. Yes. So Redux is a library which does only state management, meaning only handles the state of your UI. The state is the values of the input fields, the data that was read from the backend, because you don't read everything, you read only portions, and things like this, basically. And right now, how we will do it is that our model will have, it will be very similar with the in-memory repositories, probably. The model will have some objects, will store some objects about the current list of questions, the current question being displayed, and so on. And you will just do this with variables. If you use Redux, there is a completely different mechanism there that you can use. It's pretty hard to understand, but it's very powerful and very much used. So if Hibernate, all of the Java developers use it, Redux, all the Angular and also React developers use it. And the difference is that Hibernate is a very complicated and stupid solution in my view, whereas Redux is pretty simple because it just does one thing, and that's state management. So it only knows to hold your state, update your state, notify you when the state was updated, and that's more or less it. Okay? But that's why I gave 2 points, because it's a lot more complicated, and we can have a discussion about Redux in a break, for example, or between each other to explain the concepts if you really want. Okay, other questions?
For assignment 1, we only do the feature 1. For the assignment 2, we can try to do feature 2, right?
Yes.
Not do it.
No. So right now, assignment 1 and assignment 2, basically assignment 1 was the backend, assignment 2 is the UI. And for assignment 3, there you might have some problems because you have to connect. But in that case, I will accept if you, for example, just do the in-memory repositories for your backend for assignment 1 and not implement all the other stuff. And just to have feature 2 and 3 complete with in-memory repositories, that's also acceptable for assignment 3. And I will think also about this. Maybe I'll not grade that much for the features for assignment 3, but more for the technical stuff then. Because for assignment 3, it will be, if you have 1 feature or 3 features, it will not be that different. The mechanism is more or less the same, so I don't think it's that important. So maybe I'll just give 1 point per extra feature, and maybe more points for the connection mechanism and so on. Okay?